limited things that could prevent them from winning a Super Bowl. But if there was one problem, it might be their run defense, specifically right now with the injuries that they have. And we'll give like a final injury update at the end of the show in one moment. But do you think that before you go, do you think that the run defense will be able to shore up when Hardgrave and my brain just blanked.
Arik Armstead?
Yep, there we go. Eric Armstead. Come back. Are you worried about their run defense against the Ravens? Potentially in the Super Bowl if you face a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes? Or do you think that they'll be able to tidy that up?
I think the way things go, right, in terms of run game, when you're losing Javon Hargrave, you're losing Arik Armstead, you're losing. To be honest, Armstead is one of the best run defenders and defensive tackles in the NFL. He doesn't get credit because he doesn't put up the crazy stats that other people do. Now, I think the run game has a little bit to do with a couple of things. When you go on a crazy run like this and you're playing this great, your legs start getting tired. Yeah. Are the Niners starting to get tired? Possibly.
The missed tackles. They had
16.
I think Kyle Posey put it out, but I think it was 17 missed tackles. This game, 14, and then 12. So in the last 3 games, they've started kind of missing more tackles. And if you think how explosive they were coming out of that bye week, and prior to that, remember when they were kind of on that losing streak, Kyle Shanahan was like, they just got tired. So
yeah, absolutely. And when your body gets tired as a linebacker, as a safety, like you start missing those tackles. You're not driving through the offensive player. Now, what I think it is 2 things. Defensive tackles and the edge rushers are getting moved. And when they're allowing the double team to move and get to the next level, a lot harder than to be able to fight a double team, right? Arik Armstead, Javon Hargrave, big bodies, hard to move. They're fighting the double team, allowing guys like Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw to clean up. Now, when you have other guys in there, for example, Javon Kinlaw, I think he's having a phenomenal season. When you have guys like Givens, who I think is terrible in the run game. I think that's just my opinion. I've been saying this since he was a rookie. When you're that bad in the run game, you're getting bullied. Getting to the second level, you're going to see a lot more missed tackles because you're trying to shed blocks, offensive linemen, and get a tackle. So I think I'm not too worried about our run defense, especially because I want to lock up that number 1 seed. Lock up the number 1 seed. You get a week rest, pretty much a bye week. Your legs are back under you for that week. You stay off of them. This team's going to be good. I'm not worried about the run defense. You're missing 2 good defensive tackles, potentially Pro Bowl tackles. I'm not too worried about that.
Now, right now, there is the latest update was yesterday because they had today off since they're playing on Monday. But Kyle Shanahan did say that potentially Arik Armstead and Javon Hargrave could be back this week. They were more day-to-day, like we're feeling that out. Now, Hardgrave, I know Arik Armstead has that plantar fasciitis thing in his foot and then some knee problems. And then Hardgrave pulled a hamstring. Obviously, this is, super minor compared to like being in the NFL, but I ran track all the way up until college, and my experience with hamstring injuries is that they're a minimum of like a 3-week injury, and there's something that can easily kind of be tweaked again if you're not actually prepared. Now I'm trying to put myself in the head of a guy who's that heavy, who literally has to plant, like his job is to like engage those leg muscles. So it's not like he can kind of in his head be like, okay, like don't put that much pressure on that leg. Like, no, like that leg needs to be fully activated. Do you think it would be smart? Because especially with the Eagles kind of reeling right now, the 49ers could lose against the Ravens and still get the number 1 seed. Obviously, they're not in their head being like, oh, it doesn't matter. But would you sit Hargrave no matter what? Or would you try to play him? How do you feel about him going?
It all depends on the injury, right? Because like some of them could be a tweak, not necessarily a pull. But I do want to address a comment. Niner Bane. It's cool to talk football, man. Don't do that stuff like you are too cute and stuff like that. Like that's not. Don't get personal with anyone. You guys are having a great conversation. I love seeing the comments. Great conversation. Don't get personal. That's all I'm trying to say. And that goes for everyone. Don't get personal. It's football. It's sports. Let's not do that. But I think for me, at the end of the day, I think it all depends. Was it a tweak? Was it a slight tight up? Was it a full pull? I don't think so. I think if he has a chance to play, that means it was probably more likely a tweak rather than a pull.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I personally would sit him. I think we're going to see this team again in the Super Bowl. This is a team I think is pretty damn good. So essentially, do you want to try to prove a point to the NFL that you're the most dominant team in the entire NFL and not just the NFC? But I trust the team doctors. They've done a phenomenal job of keeping players in and out of the lineup.
Especially
I
this year.
personally,
They've been really good.
absolutely. So I personally would sit both of them, just because I think it's better to get that number 1 seed than to beat the Baltimore Ravens. You need 2 out of 3. I'm personally sitting them for the next 2 weeks. But if they're good to go, let's get ready to rock. Let's get one this week. We'll get one next week, and then you get 2 weeks of rest. But
Extended rest.
I don't think Kyle does that
Yeah,
because
because then rust versus rest, right?
yep,
That's always a
rust versus
conversation. I
rest.
feel like those Aaron Rodgers teams, they had like a habit of doing that, resting too much and then
And it kills you.
sucking in the playoffs in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
You said something and it made me want to ask you, do you think that the Ravens are the best team in the AFC right now?
Oh, by far. That defense is stacked. That team is well coached. John Harbaugh over there is
They don't get the hype they deserve.
they
Like
don't they
it's not that they're like I don't think negatively about them, but just when I think of the Chiefs, when I think of the Dolphins, like those names are said way more than the Ravens. I feel like.
and what the reason is because the Chiefs are up there and they're one of the teams that gets talked about a lot because of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, right? People don't give Lamar Jackson the credit he deserves as a passer. They consider him a running quarterback. Now, when you look at what the
His
Baltimore
passing has gotten way better in recent years too,
he's
right?
been,
Like I feel like that's such a tired narrative on him. I heard someone saying that they didn't like him as a quarterback, like his skill. Someone said like true, he's not a good true quarterback. I never liked that stuff. I felt like people used to say that with Debo, not a good true wide receiver. If they play the position and they're playing at the top of that position, they're a good whatever that position is. I don't care if it's true or not true. But when you are saying true, Lamar Jackson is incredibly smart, sees the field very well, and is a good passer. So I do think that narrative is, with Brock Purdy, we kind of talk about his draft status maybe being like a reason he doesn't get as much credit. I wonder if part of that also affects Lamar Jackson. He had, a really big like he's just a running back type of narrative, and I feel like he's really proven that that's not true. Literally been a unanimous MVP and still has to deal with that discussion.
I mean, people
Obviously also
forget
memories.
there was a lot of teams that were asking him to convert to receiver actually. Like there was
Yeah.
teams in the interview process were like, "Will you convert to receiver?" And he was like, "No, why would I do that?" Like, so I think this is a very well coached team. They lost their two top running backs. They've been battling injuries. Their receivers are decent. They battled. They lost a super talented tight end. So they're battling injuries and they're still winning football games. Now, you do see them play a couple of games, and then you see them play, for example. They make it a very close game with the Rams. I believe they're playing. I don't know if they played already or if they get to play them later in the season. The Dolphins in the AFC. I think they play them next week. They had a close game with the Browns that the Browns won. But then when you look at them, they blow the freaking doors off the Lions, blow out Seattle. They blew out the Browns in the beginning of the season. I think they're a very well coached team. Defensively, I don't like to say it, but their linebackers compete with our linebackers.
I have that as a topic. I was gonna have that as a topic.
They have
I feel like as